Hello, hello, hello. Assalamu alaikum. Ji ayanu. Pakhair agale. Ni hao. Chune shumme. Washmale. Ohaya gozaimasu. Guten Morgen. Hola. Bonjour. Privyet. Kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore. Ahlan wa sahlan. Marhaba. Buna. Mucho. Gracias. Swabia. Bhalli kare aaya. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into PTV World. You watching World this morning, alongside the one and only Mr. Shahzad Ahsan Khan. Ladies and gentlemen, early in the morning, I hope and I pray that everybody out there is doing perfectly fine and that you're ready to get started with your week with all the energy and with whatever you want to do in life. Okay, that's one thing. And I think that everybody needs to pray for everybody else as well. And this is what they say, that when you pray for somebody else, you're actually going to get whatever you're praying for very sooner. And ladies and gentlemen, to be very honest, I think that praying for somebody else will actually give you that compassion. It will create that space within your own heart where you will actually be in love with all of those other people you have been praying for. That's point one. Other than that, ladies and gentlemen, we still know that there is a second wave of the coronavirus as well, COVID-19, and we've seen it ourselves as well. And I've had the first-hand experience, so it's better to be safe than sorry. So please make sure that you follow all the standard operating procedures, because everything pretty much is now open. So kids will be going to school, probably some on the 30th and some on 15th, which makes it today as well. But ladies and gentlemen, there have been a few unfortunate events over the weekend. We would love to talk about them. And as much as we would love to talk about them, I think we hate such incidents taking place over and over again. As a matter of fact, whenever we speak about our mothers, as a matter of fact, whenever we speak about our sisters, wives, or anybody else, I think nobody is safe in these days and times as well. A bit of this responsibility definitely goes to the government, because it definitely comes under the umbrella of law and order as well, where the government is responsible to protect whatever rights I have, and not just that, protects my property and protects everything else as well. Just yesterday, a friend of mine was actually on gunpoint as well, and somebody took away his phone over here in Islamabad. Not just that, we obviously know the sad incident which took place on the motorway, and then there were a few other reported cases of rape. Now, today what we're going to do is that every now and then we obviously have a question for the government. But today, ladies and gentlemen, I think that I will be focusing on what we need to do as parents to make sure that our kids know what's happening with them, or what somebody else or whoever is a stranger or stranger danger is doing to them. So I think that what we need to do is that we really need to be in conversation with all of those parents who are out there who want their kids to be protected at all times. I think we need to play a role. And it just came up to me when I was preparing for it. I was like, every now and then we'll be like, okay, the government needs to do this. We need to talk about the law. Okay, what kind of laws are in place as well? That's fine. But when it comes down to child abuse, child protection, child rights, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is as important for the parents to be aware of whatever rights are out there, because I think that one way or the other, we have never tried getting into this as well. Rather, we love to speak about things and not do our own research. Not just that. What do you think needs to be, how do you think holistically a child needs to be, or probably groomed, nurtured, nourished? Or probably what is the holistic development of a kid, and how does a parent really need to go through that as well? That's one thing. But whenever we speak about child rights, I think what we really need to do over here is that we really need to know what those rights are in the first place, and then make sure that those rights are given to that particular child. Not just that, ladies and gentlemen, whenever we speak about children, it may be yours, it may be mine, it may be anybody else's. People have always been in love with children. And God forbid, there's a very thin line in between love and then sexual abuse as well. We really need to look into it. Every now and then we get cases where there's this master, where there's this teacher, where there's somebody else, God forbid, who's actually abused a child. And I don't think that this is right. We have seen cases in the past as well, where there were these university students and the professor was trying to harass them. Just so the students were asking for some grace marks as well, so that they could pass the examination. But imagine what the professor did, what the teacher did. And ladies and gentlemen, ever since I was growing up, I was told that a teacher is a spiritual father or a spiritual parent. Imagine a spiritual parent doing something like this to the kid. Now, when we talk about kids, ladies and gentlemen, how to give them that courage that they really need to come back home, be open with their parents, and let them know, rather than having this fear that now if I'm going to tell my parents that this is something which his or her master did, or a teacher did, or somebody else did, or a cousin did, they will be angry. So I think that we really need to draw the line over here where the parents really need to take it offensive, because people do get offended with such acts of, whatever other family members they might have done, and they really do not want to speak about it. People over here in Pakistan have this habit of brushing all of these things under the carpet. For how long are we going to do it? Just because of the fact that we are brushing it under the carpet, ladies and gentlemen, it's happening on a larger scale now. So I think today our producer has actually done a fabulous job, that we have some amazing guests over here in the studios. We will be in conversation with them. We were lucky to get our hands on child psychologists as well, so they can let us know what goes on into their head, and then how parents can actually be a helping hand to them. And not just that, then obviously, ladies and gentlemen, we have a representative from the government side as well. But before that, I think I'll be introducing the child psychologist. Ladies and gentlemen, she's one of the most senior over here in Islamabad as well. Every now and then, whenever we get into trouble, or whenever we have a problem, or whenever we want to have a conversation, I think that she's been our first choice as well. She's a child psychologist. She's none other than Dr. Aiza Abid. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Fine, and I'm really honored because it's a good opportunity for me to share my concerns as a professional with the people.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to have you alongside Dr. Aiza. Ladies and gentlemen, we've actually been joined by somebody who, in the first phase of her life, when we actually met her, when she started to come for our show, ladies and gentlemen, she happens to be a child right activist. But imagine that people have such dedication in life, such motivation in life, that they always make sure that if they want to bring about a change, that they will not, take a step back. They will only move in the forward direction. She, ladies and gentlemen, happens to be one of those iron ladies as well. She is currently the chairperson of Ncrc. She is Ms. Afshan Tahseen Bajwa. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you. Last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, she happens to be the founder of a startup with the name of Happy Being. She's a child psychologist. She, for the very first time, is over here in our show, and we would love to give her a very warm welcome. She is the one and only Miss Afreen Athar. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for giving me an opportunity, and I will be explaining what is child psychology first of all, and the most important thing is who is a child.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I still believe that I'm a child, ladies and gentlemen. I really do not want to grow up. Everybody needs to be a child in these days as well, so that there's lesser anxiety, there are lesser problems as well. When you think of yourself as a child, I think you will feel great as well. But very quickly, I think I'm going to move on to the government's representative today we have over here. You happen to be the chairperson of the Ncrc as well. First of all, since we are talking about child rights today, what are those child rights which parents are not aware of? And whenever we speak about child rights, I think even I am not very sure about what points to talk about. So would you mind, aligning us?
There are like three principles of child rights. Holistic child rights definition is anybody who is below the age of 18. And
That's
I
me.
would just sum up into, holistic child rights mean a child who is able to live in a conducive environment with dignity and with respect. And we should be focusing on, his child participation, his survival,
Yeah.
his development, and
Okay.
child protection is a child who is away from all those harmful practices which are there in society.
Exactly. That's wonderfully explained as well. But whatever points you've discussed so far, I think all of these are questionable as well. So what is being done by the Ncrc, to make sure that the child rights are protected?
In fact, Ncrc is a newly established commission. It was, notified on 28th of February 2020 under the Act of Parliament. And as a result, there is like the chairperson, myself, and 5 members from each province and 1 ICT. And it has a huge mandate, which is to work across the country on the, monitoring and oversight of child rights. It's a statutory body. It's not a service delivery directly, but its role is to ensure that all the service providers, be it the government, be it the autonomous bodies, be it the NGOs or any other, players, they should be doing their job as per mandate.
All right.
So it has got some, functions as awareness, working on just ensuring the materialization of child rights on trafficking, child abuse, child labor, other education, health. And apart from that, it has 2 powers also. One is inquiry, and the other is it can summon people from court orders if there are violation of child rights.
All right. Have we summoned so far?
No,
Anyone? So not so far. Ladies and gentlemen, the institute itself, or the organization, or when we speak about Ncrc, it's relatively new. She's just taken over the chair as well. So, we definitely are going to look into it as well a little deeper. But then at the same time, we need to give them that space to, actually have a fair startup as well. But I'll come back to you, Dr. Aiza. I'm very lucky that you've actually taken our time and to be over here on the show as well. But whenever we talk about child rights, whenever we talk about child abuse, whenever we talk about child protection, one way or the other, I think that we do not ring all the bells. What we do is that, we do not dig in deeper. We are on the surface. We talk about it. We go back home. Today, what I want you to do is, I want you to be in conversation with our viewers. Let them know how, as parents, they can protect their child in the first place. And then let's talk about what the government is doing. Because the first ever responsibility is of that particular person who brought that child into this world.
Exactly.
And, we cannot leave them out on the streets just like that. I think everybody needs to talk about it. And it's not about whether how privileged we are or somebody else is not, God forbid. Because children are children and they're equal. Let's get started.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up, because now the focus will be away from, after what has happened. I've always emphasized prevention. Now, it's very easy to have a child, okay? But to become a parent, to have a mindset of a parent, you need to totally change your personality and your own self. Now, what you said was very interesting. You want to be a child and free from everything. And that is exactly what being a child is, because at that time, you don't have to worry about some things.
Yeah.
Now, the most important thing about a child is, or a baby or infant or young person, they are dependent and vulnerable.
Yep.
They need someone else to protect them.
Yes.
Right? So, as a parent, we need to protect the child. Now, how do we protect that? Now, for instance, if there's an earthquake or if there's a national calamity, that it's a traumatic thing, it's a life-changing thing, we accept it and we are able to relatively move on.
Yep.
But because I'm a human being and because I live among human beings, if any person, and that is the ultimate trust which is innate, which is natural,
Yep.
if that trust is violated, I am scarred for life.
Exactly.
And how is that? Parents who neglect their child, they are also abusive.
Okay.
If you are not there when the child needs you, if the child is hungry, sad, unhappy, if you can't understand what the child needs, that again is a neglect and a abuse also.
And then
right?
what's the point of you being the parent if you
Yes,
cannot understand?
If you
Yes.
can't understand. Secondly, we in our parenting practices, the most unfortunate thing which I have seen is, if you don't say salam, if you don't do this, if you don't do this, you're a bad child and you must listen to this, that. So you must listen to the chacha, you must listen to the uncle, you must listen to the man on the road.
You listen to everybody.
You must listen to everybody. What happens then? You have made the child open to abuse of all kinds from all.
Exactly.
So this way, if we don't teach the child, look, you are a most wonderful person on earth, I love you, I'm there for you, and you need to tell me if you're sad, unhappy, because we'll sort it out together.
Yeah.
And it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. Okay?
Exactly.
And you don't want to do something, you tell me, we'll work about it. Okay?
Yeah.
But what we do is, if the child is going, no, we'll give you an injection. It's happened so many times with me. I'm just standing at a party and this mother is, reasonable, educated mothers, and I hear the mother say, if you don't finish your food, this auntie will slap you. I say, why will I slap you? Why will I slap? When you tell your children that this person on the road can hit you, how are you empowering your child? You are opening your child to open to all kinds of abuse.
Yes.
So the mindset towards parenting, towards raising your children is the first thing which you need to change.
Exactly.
And that is that trauma, that abuse which we give open our child, it is very difficult to heal because it scars all your relationships.
Yeah.
And then in Pakistan we don't have that kind of intervention, that psychological that setup, no legislation, no nothing for the child at any level.
Okay.
Even the new education policy, I don't see any understanding of the child's ability coming up there. So we are not protecting our children anyway.
Exactly, and you've definitely brought up some very valid points as well, which obviously reminded me, in fact gave me nostalgia, and I went back when I was a kid and how I was raised as well. And you were very right, we were not, even till date, I cannot say anything to my chachus or uncles or anybody. If anybody has said, go fetch a glass of water, probably from a mile away, I'll have to go and then bring it back as well. If I'm not going to do it, probably I'm going to be slapped by my father or by my mother as well. This is one thing. I think the point which I need to make over here is that, ladies and gentlemen, we really need to look back in time, and we really need to decide whether the way we were bringing up children then was better or the way we are doing it now is better. And we need to have a fair comparison, is because of the fact that I've seen it for myself as well, that that the way children were raised back then, even if it was chachu, even if it was mamu, kaka, anybody, you'll have to do whatever they are saying, and that you cannot say no. And then obviously get slapped, get beaten. You go to your school and college, you get beaten over there as well. So it's a lot of beating, and then eventually you're like, oh hey, you know what? My son is such a good product. Please, I think that we really need to stop with it.
And if I just add, now in the latest system, we have a driver, we have a maid, and I have literally seen, and you will have also heard, if you are at any school at 8 a.m. when the children are being dropped, you will see there's a driver and there's a maid. And when the child is being picked up and when the child is being dropped, the child comes so happy, and then there is so much going on in that car during that ride home. There is violence, there is slapping, and at home when you have servants, the servants are not attending. I have children coming up in my clinic and they say, we want something, we go to the cook and he says, oh, go away, I don't want to make food for you. So what kind of adults, what kind of role modeling are we giving the children?
Exactly. So which is why I'm going to move on to Miss Afreen over here. Now, who do you think we really need to counsel? Parents or kids? Let's talk about that first of all.
First of all, it's important to counsel the kids first because they are most vulnerable, and secondly, it's important to...
but they are vulnerable because of the fact that the practices their parents have adopted,
yes,
I think
so
makes them more vulnerable.
Yeah, parents are actually the basic trainer or teacher of a child, because when a child is born, the first interaction of a child is with his or her caregiver or a parent. So parents must know first that how to teach your child how to protect oneself.
Go ahead, tell all the parents how to teach their child.
Okay. First of all, it's important to explain and to create a rapport and good relationship with the parents, with the child, that I am with you, and whatever happens with you, I am with you. There are certain do's and don'ts which parents must know. For example, if a child is sharing something with you as a parent, and you will say that don't say this is not acceptable at all, and that particular shut up call will not allow the child to share his or her experience if he or she is being abused or is being vulnerable to abuse. For example, as Dr. Aiza has said that most of the drivers and maids are abusing the child, be it physical level or in most severe cases sexual level as well. So parents must develop a level of trust with the children, so that the child will share his or her feelings with that parent. And secondly, parents must also know the indicating signs that can be physical or psychological or behavioral in nature. For example, if a child is reluctant to go to school suddenly, or if there is an academic change, for example, if a child is first position holder or good position holder and suddenly he fails in his or her exam. So these are some indicating signs that are related to academics. On the other hand, there are certain behavioral symptoms. For example, if a child is constantly crying, is unable to express himself or herself, has binge eating or less eating, or there are bad dreams of that child. So these are the indicating signs that parents must observe and act accordingly and ask the child what's happening with you.
Exactly, and we'll definitely do that. But ladies and gentlemen, with that, we'll actually have to go towards a short break. But when you guys will come back, since we have the privilege today that we've actually been joined by the chairperson Ncrc as well, I'm going to ask her whether how important it is for us to impart sex education to children, because I think it's about high time that we make it normal, and we shouldn't actually make it look like a taboo or stigma that everybody talking about, God forbid, sex is just like as if somebody's making fun or the kids are smiling and this is something out of this world. I think this is something very natural. It needs to be taken it as very natural as well, and looked at as well in a very natural way, ladies and gentlemen. I think how are we going to normalize things? Because if I go back in time, and when I was in my university and when I was studying psychology, there was this one author, I do not remember the name, I'm going to ask Dr. Aiza within this break as well, where the psychologist himself wrote that when a kid is 3 to 4 years old, he's actually, you know, kind of developing all of those organs as well, and, you know, towards the parent or to father parent or the mother parent, you know, otherwise, you know, that's how the kids develop it. And eventually, I think, you know, when the kids are growing up, we really need to let them know what it is and how it needs to be looked upon as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a short break. Let's see when we come back what the NCRC chairperson has to say about it. Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For everybody who just got tuned into PTV World, you watching World this morning alongside Shahzad Khan. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about child rights protection, child abuse, and we are actually even talking about how to kind of educate our parents, or probably, you know, those newer parents who are out there as well, to in order to look after their children, because children these days, ladies and gentlemen, are vulnerable to all kinds of abuse as well. How do we stop that is the first question. But before we get into that, before heading out towards a short break, there was this one thing which I wanted to talk about, and that was sex education, and that how are we going to normalize it? How do you think the schools are going to adopt to a course which is decent to study, and then at the same time educates or impart the knowledge which is very necessary and important for the kids to have these days as well. And I think I'm going to pose this question to the chairperson NCRC as well. Ma'am, what do you have to say about it? Have you given it a thought already?
We have been given it a thought, because I have been associated before joining this portfolio on, you know, with child protection through various platforms where we have been categorically working on child protection, which is, the definition is child protection from abuse, exploitation and neglect.
Yep.
And in all that, the child's participation, child's development, child's healthy survival and positive development is ensured.
Yeah.
So sex education, self-awareness, child protection should be at the heart of development of each and every child.
Exactly.
As you know, Pakistan is one of those few countries where almost 47% population is, you know, below the age of like 26, and 30% is below the age of 15. So this is the most important, you know, I must say, segment of society where we have to invest. And we already know, you have already talked about that, you know, the early years of any child are the most crucial years, and the more we invest, the more we get in terms of positive development.
Exactly.
So these type of, you know, skills, you can say, or awareness raising, or you can say, or all those practices should be part and parcel of every education system.
Exactly.
Normally in Pakistan, scoring grade is considered as the education, whereas we believe that healthy development of the child should be the indicator of an education system. So schools should have a very, you know, crucial policy on child protection. They should have systems, they should have courses, they should have proper, you know, regular classes, how to train first their teachers, and after the policy in place, and then to train the children in all those life skills which ensure they are protected, they are aware, and they have self-defense.
Exactly.
So overall, the government's role is to ensure those practices are in place, those policies are in place in schools. And I must say, we side by side, we also have to work on the awareness raising, because normally in this society, even now, it is still considered a taboo to talk about sex education or child protection.
Yep.
And if anything happens, I'm talking about the whole Pakistan, not only the bigger cities. It is still considered very bad to talk about, such norms.
Exactly.
Even during this COVID-19, if you will hear stories, actually many people killed their children, in the name of honor or such, norms. So there are numerous cases of,
That's
even
sad.
murder and many other things. I don't want to name it here. It's very sad to talk about. But yes, the education policymakers should ensure, the education ministry should ensure that all the schools have such policies in place, and they are very categorically being implemented. There was a case, in the recent past of one private school, and I had also, as a chairperson, issued statement that schools should have child protection committees also, ensuring representation of teachers, students, and parents, so that if there is any such happen, there should be an active action taken while ensuring the confidentiality of the child.
Exactly.
So all these structures should be there. And even last week, I wrote a letter to PEMRA, just asking them on behalf of NCRC, since we have a monitoring and oversight role, that before every news bulletin, they should ensure there should be certain announcement about child protection or missing children or such things. Because what happens is, in Pakistan, mostly I give credit also that role of police has been replaced by media. So whatever thing is first owned by the government, and then it is announced through media, it is, slowly and gradually people start accepting it.
Exactly.
You remember there was a drama named Odari, it was on child protection. The moment it was on air, lots of people had started acknowledging, realizing that there is an issue in place, and it is in a society. It's not the strangers who do this, it's mostly the known people who do this.
Exactly.
So first of all, we have to make sure that there are right policies in place. There are institutions who should be functional operation to ensure the services are there. There should be proper referral mechanism. From the end user perspective, if something happens to the child should know where he or she will go, where he or she will get justice, be it, something in conflict with law, something psychosocial support, something support from police, from the, welfare institutions, or any other legal assistance he or she needs, So all these services should be there, and the state should be providing, and there should be holistic mechanism of child protection system in place. So these are the things we need to talk about as government or as the high.
And as a government body, are you talking about all of these things as well?
Definitely.
Wonderful.
Of course.
I think that this is what is required of you as well. But very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, in today's time, what I've realized is, and I've seen numerous cases, that for all of those kids, God forbid, who were vulnerable back in the days as well, and unfortunately there were these events which took place with them, and they never spoke about it. They have been recently very disturbed. They've had this trauma now, they get these anxiety attacks, and that they are in a problem. And no matter how much you brush it in the carpet, you really need to recognize that emotion as well. And as a psychologist, I would actually love to ask you this as well. God forbid, if something happened with somebody, they didn't share it with anybody, do you think that in near future he or she might have a problem, or this thought might come across their head as well, that now I'm not vulnerable as much as I was then, I probably need to go and look for that person and beat the hell out of him or her or whoever he or she was? That's one question. And do you think that it can actually convert into trauma and then have a lifelong problem with you too as well? Number two, what I need to ask is that who are those children who are vulnerable? Are those the children who are not under the sight of their parents most of the time, or are those children who might have a very different kind of approach to all of this as well, or it's because of the parents, how they have nurtured them or nourished them, or how they have seen things happening around them as well?
Okay, so that's three, Noel, and maybe 4 or 5 subsets.
Yeah, and we short on time as well.
Yes.
So.
Okay. First, I think it's very difficult to go and beat up, because either you move away, or the child, the person moves away, or the person is no more, and then things change a lot, and sometimes you learn from that, and then they move on, and positively they may take care of the children and their sisters or brothers or whatever, and generally what happens, it is a trauma.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. It is a violation. It is a your trust has been trust in other people. This is. I will always emphasize, and this is the first time I'm talking on your show, that the most devastating psychological aspect is the trust in another human being. When that is shattered, so that trauma comes out in different ways. So regression, it's the nightmares, the anxiety, meeting new people, and most importantly for girls, it translates into not being able to have good relations eventually with your husband, and then how to, it's a trickle down effect. It spreads around in so many ways. For men, it can be in other ways, because we encourage acting out, we encourage violence, we encourage a lot of things. So that's okay. So for men, it's on the aggressive side. For the female, it's on the inner submissive side, and then they keep on taking it, and they don't know, and they're just enforced to take it on. And what was your third question?
So the third question was, who are the kids who are more vulnerable?
Okay. So I think by and large, let's focus on the mindset of the people.
Okay.
Like I said, there are no barriers, there's nothing. So right now, almost everybody is vulnerable.
Yeah.
Okay. So a child who's not appreciated for being an individual person, not respected for his abilities, not respected for what he wants to do in life, they all come vulnerable, because some way or the other they are being handled in a way that they are being coerced to follow the norm of the society.
Exactly.
So secondly, because they are witnessing abuse in the home, and especially during the COVID, a lot of bad things have happened. So the children have been exposed to that. So every child, do you know, Shehzad, I have seen that even the tone of your voice in some houses where the tone is not raised, if that child is exposed to a different tone that is also traumatic. So they end up being bullied in schools.
Yeah.
So from parents who are fighting, their child is vulnerable. Those who are going through an acrimonious divorce, the children are vulnerable. Mother whose mother has died, whose father.
I think you've hit the nail on the head as well, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody is vulnerable. Imagine somebody traveling on motorway, a mother of 2 kids, and she was the most vulnerable even at that time while traveling. So yeah, so I think everybody needs to have it in their head as well, and make sure that they make peace with it, because ladies and gentlemen, that's what we have been doing, that we have been making peace with whatever atrocity has been happening, or not. Even if I'm not going to name it atrocity, obviously it's a trauma, and one way or the other, I think majority of the people have gone through it. Now it comes down to how the government protects it, what are the laws in place for juvenile as well, and not just that. I think that we really need to talk about the Pakistan Penal Code as well, where it talks about Article 376 and 377. I'm not an expert on this as well, but we have been joined by somebody who happens to be an expert as well, and he's got a good grip. He's a barrister, Mr. Waqas Abrez Khan. Thank you very much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much.
It's always good to hear your voice early in the morning as well. Thank you very much. But so we are talking about child rights, child protection, and what are the laws are in place over here. Because I'm going to give you a reference, and because I see loopholes and people talk about them as well. So it was a long time ago, a blind girl was raped, and when the case actually went into the court, unfortunately, the blind girl ended up behind the bars. So what kind of law are we looking at over here, and what kind of loopholes? Because the yardstick is too long to actually kind of have something substantial to prove that, okay, that God forbid I've been raped.
Yes, Shehzad, absolutely right. Child abuse cases are immensely increasing in Pakistan. Even that the incident which taken place on the motorway was a very much dreadful and doleful incident in the history of Pakistan. After the passing of the Zainab bill, it was expected by the lawmakers as well as the ordinary citizens of Pakistan that the child abuses cases pertaining to the rape, abduction, kidnapping of child, as well as so far as the rape of the women will be stopped in Pakistan. As there was a categorical provisions which was given in the Zainab bill that the police will be, the agency which was created under the Zara bill, that will be directed to lodge the FIR within 2 hours of occurrence. But unfortunately, these were just like to build a castle in the air. It has nothing to do with the reality. In the practice, I have observed in my practice that nothing like that, and the police just treat with the victims with a very harsh-handed, as the case of the motorway in front of you, as the statement of the CCP against which the protest was launched all over the country. So if that statement was given on the media, if just supposed if somebody goes to the police station and SHO is dealing with that lady, there is no media, there is no screen, no public in the police station, how they will deal with the victims in the police station? This is a very burning question for all the investigating agencies in the Pakistan, especially the representation which was made by the CCPO, that was very bashing and ashamed on the part of our law investigating agencies, that in spite of dispensing the victims with justice or lodging their FIR, they are giving them instruction and direction as per the constitution, as per the law of the land. They are the custodian and they must provide the protection to the people of the country. But unfortunately, so far as in last 3 to 4 months, the cases are immensely increasing in Pakistan, and our politicians, our parliamentarians, they can do nothing except to make the new legislation. But so far as I am agree with you that there are so many loopholes in our prosecution, in our investigation and interrogation, so that when the police submit their report in the court of law, it is always presumed that accused is the favorite child of law, and the benefit of doubt is always given to the accused in the criminal justice system. So our system is rotten to cure. Even if there is a slight doubt and dent, as there is so many judgment of Supreme Court that the benefit of doubt will be bestowed to accused person. So if there is a doubt in your investigation, interrogation, this will give a benefit to the accused, and after that he will be acquitted by the court of law. So our system, our
Sorry, Vikas, that I'm interjecting as well. Imagine that, we're giving benefit to the accused rather than the person who's actually accusing somebody else for doing something. We're giving somebody else. And just correct me over here, since we're talking about loopholes as well, Vikas, what I need to know is, because this is something which somebody told me and I was shocked, that the footage of a camera is not admissible in the court of law. Is that correct?
No, according to the new amendment which was taken place in QSO, Kanoon-e-Shahadat Order 1984, the Article 164 of the QSO make it permissible before the court of law. All the electronic evidences which was produced and made through the electronic devices, they are admissible right now, whereas the new amendment has been taken place in the Kanoon-e-Shahadat Order. So it's admissible, and I'm just getting you the point which you are raising regarding the case of Achak Zai, in which the footage was produced, but on that case there was no question regarding the footage. But unfortunately, all the witnesses, they're just hostile and they retracted from their earlier statement before the court of law. So court left with no option except to just acquit the accused before the court of law.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much, Vikas, for your time as well. It was wonderful to be in conversation. But very quickly, what do you think needs to be done so that we can actually protect our children?
I personally believe that our law enforcing agencies, they must try to enforce the detrimental punishments, and our courts must not hesitate to provide the detrimental punishment, as the English jurisprudence clearly indicate that the hardened criminals, the habitual offenders, and the people who are involved in the heinous offences, they must provided the detrimental punishment so far, so that it must create the precedent by the court of law. And I must highlight another issue of the day, that in February 2020, the law regarding to the public hanging was passed by, but that was a non-binding resolution of Parliament of Pakistan. It must have the binding force, and the people who do these type of crime, they must behind the bar and they must hang publicly.
Thank you very much, Vikas, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation. Thank you very much for giving us time. Right, so ladies and gentlemen, this is what Barrister Vikas Abrez Khan has to say, and these are his opinions as well, obviously. But I think that the nation is actually looking forward to getting all of these criminals, or all of those people who are actually violating all of these rules, ladies and gentlemen. All of these laws are probably not really making us eligible to have our own rights as well. Probably need to be hanged publicly as well. God forbid, if somebody is actually going to do this to any one of us, I don't think that I'm going to forgive them, probably. And I do not even want to give a harsh statement since I'm on television. But God forbid, if it's going to come down to me, ladies and gentlemen, only then I can realize, you know how things are. I mean, just thinking about that lady on the motorway, ladies and gentlemen, I just cannot sleep these days as well. And it's because of the fact, imagine what her husband might be going through, what her kids might be going through, what she herself might be going through, ladies and gentlemen. and it is our responsibility. There's one thing which I've made sure that I'm going to speak about, and that is that's something which we call neighborhood watch. Ladies and gentlemen, these days we are so we're so involved in everything that we're not keeping an eye on what's actually happening around us. I mean, for all of those people, just for 1 second, while out on the street, if you see somebody holding a kid's hand or probably taking them for a walk, just follow them for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, see if the baby is safe, if the kid is safe, or if he or she is actually probably going with somebody whom they know, or is somebody who's actually a relative as well. Just keeping an eye out on things will actually make sure that we are going to see a decreasing number in such incidents as well. But very quickly, Ms. Afshan, do you have a message today?
Definitely, I have a message. First of all, for the parents, as you said, they have a very crucial role to play. Positive parenting is an area we need to work upon. So parents, first of all, needs to take care of their children. Then neighborhood watch. Then implementation of all the laws.
Exactly.
Like Juvenile Justice Act is there, but Abras was
Exactly.
talking about it needs to be implemented. So overall, all the key stakeholders need to play their role, but parents come first.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Ms. Afreen, do you have a message?
Yes, I must say that although it's important for the parents to know what is child protection and how to instill that education, but there must be a good spousal communication as well, because the parental influence upon a child is very crucial in child development and holistic development. So parents must understand the dynamics of nurturing parenting and care, so that it will directly positively impact the child.
Wonderful. Dr. Isaac.
And my bit is, I will sort of summarize that when we talk of a holistic, because this is not just one thing, but we are talking about society and the legal and everything, bring psychologists into every profession of life, bring them in child protection, bring them in schools, bring them in universities, bring them in curriculum development, because I think right now the gap, because the social sciences are not there, we are not studying history, sociology, etc. We must bridge this gap, we must talk about it, we must give spaces, we must give acceptance. So let's talk about it and bring the right professionals to bridge that gap.
Exactly. Thank you very much. I think it was a wonderful message. Thank you very much, ladies, for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, it's my responsibility and our entire team's responsibility to talk about such topics. We over here, since we're talking about sex education over here on PTV World, I think is an element which is going to make sure that the rest of the world recognize that there's no taboo, that there's no stigma in talking about such topics. And it is because of the fact that we want to let the world know that we're ready to embrace whatever changes are coming, but then we are going to do it our way as well. And we are working together, and we will continue to work together as well. But there's one thing which I've done, ladies and gentlemen, and I think that everybody needs to do that. For every now and then, whenever I'm traveling, if I see a kid alone with a male on a bike, in a car, I've always made sure to stop them and ask, who is this kid to you? And God forbid, if the kid is not happy or crying, it's only then when I've actually interjected and I've asked, even though people have actually shown very different kind of responses to me as well, where tum kaun ho, tumhara kya matlab hai? But this is how we're going to protect our future, ladies and gentlemen. All of these children are our future, and we really want them to have a great life, and we really do not want them to be vulnerable to anything at all. Please make sure that you write to us on our Facebook fan page, which is with the name of World This Morning. On Twitter, it's World This Morning without a G on your television screens down below. On YouTube, you'll have to look for PTV World, and then the most viewed show, which is World This Morning. Shukar Alhamdulillah. The repeat is going to be at 5 past midnight. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure, if you're a Muslim, take out time for your Allah Almighty as well. Pray 5 times a day, and when you pray, pray for all of us as well. Good morning. Bye.